Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Paranormal Paradigm podcast with your host, me, Ben Kelly.
And Kieran Woodhouse.
So, on today's show, we're going to have a guest coming on called Ron Mayer, who's going to talk to us about Bigfoot.
Yes, can't wait.
How Bigfoot may be a creature of this earth, he may not, who knows.
Multi-dimensional.
So, this could be very interesting.
I love Bigfoot. Always, if anyone ever thinks of cryptozoological creatures, Bigfoot's always at the forefront of the list. And he's certainly a huge interest of mine. And as we did last week, a new part of the show, we're going to open up each show with a particular topic, a particular debate. And we thought today we would continue the theme of Bigfoot and cryptozoological creatures. And as we did last week, we encourage all of our listeners, please, to leave any comments or email us or Facebook us. Any feedback on the debate if you want to have your say, and we'll read them out next week on the show. Cryptozoological creatures. Yeah. Where do you stand, Ben?
I'm very skeptical.
Okay.
Of this sort of thing because, first of all, I will say that I haven't really looked into it that much.
Yep.
It's not something I've really looked into, so my knowledge of it is very limited. But Bigfoot, for example, I'm not sure. I don't know. I've seen programs on TV about Bigfoot and that sort of thing, and nothing ever seems to really stand out to me for me to go, oh, actually, that's a really good point. I always think, well, it's a bear or something.
Well, I think I think there are two. The aspect for me for Bigfoot, and it's tricky because I agree with what you're saying, but I do believe, and I'm not sure if it's that I want to believe. I'm not sure if I'm in love with the idea of these creatures existing in our world. Bigfoot, Mothman, Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra, and all these kind of mythical creatures, I guess, that are existing in the world. But as we spoke, I think it was episode 2 with Todd, where he spoke about how these creatures, vampires and Bigfoot, how they have a grain of salt in ancient civilizations, in old cultures. I think that plays a huge part.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah.
There are Native Indians or Native Americans who have stories of hairy men, and even in the UK there are stories of hairy men and big brutish men.
I know the big thing for the Native American community is like shapeshifters and that sort of thing. That's always been a big
skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers,
that's it. Yeah, and I think for me, it's difficult to believe that there is a flesh and blood Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't want to say too much because I know that Ronnie's going to talk about the paranormal aspect, the paranormal dimension of Bigfoot. But that sits better with me and my belief that possibly, and as people know, my theory on the how the world is made up of frequencies and paranormal objects, paranormal phenomena happen outside of our frequency range. And it's possible that that's what Bigfoot is. Bigfoot is operating on frequencies outside of our visible light.
Yeah, I think that's what makes me so skeptical. Is like you've just said, I'm not sure I could believe that it's this big ape human style creature that's just living up in the mountains in America somewhere, that's on their own and surviving somehow.
Yeah, you never hear of people. You do hear of people finding dead bodies, but they're always proven to be a hoax.
Yeah.
So if they did exist, why don't we ever? You go hunting, or you can go into the forests and you find dead carcasses of, in this country, rabbits, badgers, and things like that. And I guess in America you'd find particular like deer or bear or things like that. But you never find a carcass of a Bigfoot.
Exactly.
And I've heard it explained away in the Bigfoot circles that they're a particularly private creature, and therefore they dispose of the bodies in a way so nobody does come across them. But I find that too much of an easy answer. It's too much of a convenient answer as to why.
It makes these creatures sound like they're very intelligent, which if they
We
are,
don't know yet.
if they are like some sort of non-terrestrial creature, then maybe they are, maybe they're not. We don't know. But I think most people think of Bigfoot as just being a big ape,
Yeah.
which probably wouldn't have the brain capacity to think, oh, I better hide that body actually, if anyone finds it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and of course, what they're also doing there is they're implying that they know this creature's incentives, and to know the creature's
Exactly.
incentives, they must know the creature.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
it's it's an interesting subject, and it's one that we'll certainly leave it to Ron
Yeah.
to discuss his theories behind it. So if anyone wants to kind of have an input on this debate, has anyone ever witnessed a Bigfoot? Has anyone ever hunted for one, actively hunted for one? Has anyone ever had a phenomena that could be attributed to a Bigfoot? Let us know. Leave a comment or email us, as I've said. And I guess we'll go into the interview now with Ron, and we hope you enjoy it. And we're here with Ron. Hi, Ron. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm here in Boulder, Colorado. It's this beautiful, sunny autumn day.
Beautiful. It's not
Sounds
so sunny
nice.
here. Yeah. Rain all day. Right, so Ron, I mean, I'm dead keen to just jump straight into this because Bigfoot has been a huge interest of mine throughout my life. And I guess we'll start where we always do. If you want to tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into the subject of Bigfoot and your research.
Well, sure. So I'm basically a filmmaker, if you want to think about it that way. I was in the public television system, and I've done feature films. And in the last 10 years, I've been doing documentary series for various companies. And I was hired to do one on the phenomena of Bigfoot, a multi-part series that would play on Amazon Prime and be released on DVD. So I had very little knowledge or interest in Bigfoot, except I could see it was big business here in the States, and it's used quite frequently as an advertising selling point for tourists. I don't know if that's true in the UK or not, is it?
Not really. I mean, right by us, there's a place called Cannock Chase, and that's quite famous for UFO sightings and ghosts. But apparently, it does have its own Bigfoot. But I'm not so sure on the validity of those claims. So
about
no.
5 years ago, I set out to produce this series, and my approach was it's a big phenomena. There's a lot of money involved in bizarre ways, including advertising. And so I wanted to interview people who had contact experiences. I wanted to go on what I call Bigfoot hunts. And I was trying to see, what were theories about what were Bigfoot. And first of all, I interviewed quite a number of people, ordinary people in many ways, who had encounters that they claim were Bigfoot. And by and large, they were transformational. A lot of them were positive. Some of them were what you might even say spiritual. They were transformational for them.
Okay.
And when I was doing the interview, I'm good at this. I've been doing interviews for years with all sorts of people. It was clear that they weren't bullshitting. They had a real experience of some kind, and they were remembering it. And sometimes you could see that whatever it was, the emotion that arose at the time of the encounter was, occurring again as they were remembering. So I was convinced that something was going on and that was real here with these people. And as I began to talk to some of the experts who've been in the field doing research or doing programs, there's multiple series on cable here. The most famous one was Finding Bigfoot that was on Animal Planet for multiple years.
Yeah, I remember that. I used to watch that quite frequently. But I also used to think that if they had found Bigfoot, it would have been big news, and it almost put me off watching it because I gathered they would never find him because otherwise we would know about it already.
Well, that was actually the paradigm of the series. If they did find the Bigfoot, then that would be the end of the series, right?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So I can tell you a story now or later. I did an interview with one of the hosts, the one called Bobo,
Yeah, the big guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He there were two things that were, rules of the road for that series. One was you can't find Bigfoot. If you if you do, you can't film it. And the last thing you certainly can't do is refer to them as any kind of paranormal woo-woo type
Right.
of creature. So that was forbidden.
That's really interesting, because
Yeah.
we often have arguments within the the ghost field, shall we say, about the validity of TV programs such as Most Haunted and Ghost Adventures and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to hear about, I guess
It's the same thing, just
the setup and what they do behind
Yeah.
these kind of programs. Yeah, that's not surprising, but still interesting.
At least Bubba was, and I think the other co-hosts, we're quite unhappy with the production company in the end, and they did not part company on pleasant terms. But getting back to my story, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, please.
So I went on multiple Bigfoot hunts, mostly at night, where you do tree knocks and whoops and stuff like that, and mostly nothing happened. We had one case where we did a tree knock. We were in the middle of nowhere in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, and we got a reply, and we were able to record it and see that it was real, and it was quite distant. But that was about it. Maybe one place we found something that might be footprints, but they could have been set up before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the more interesting thing is we did, there are Bigfoot hikes and events that you can go to where people will take you out in the woods and do these Bigfoot hunts. And one of them was a Bigfoot weekend where people come from all over North America, and they spend 3 days with the families doing kind of intensive Bigfoot activities, including going on what they call night ops.
Wow.
And my daughter, who was very interested in the paranormal, was the co-producer on the series, and she wrote a lot of it. And she met the head of the Bigfoot weekend, and they fell in love and got married. And so now he's my co-partner on the film I mentioned that we're producing right now. So, Bigfoot can lead to all sorts of surprises.
Wow.
And anyhow, so after running around talking to experts, looking at evidence, doing interviews, I came across one guy who surprised me when I asked him, what about Bigfoot? And he said, I think they're alien creatures. They have paranormal capabilities. And it was like, wow, that's it. If I could never buy the hypotheses that these were some sort of flesh and blood, hairy, lost primate. It made no sense to me that they could.
I'd have to agree there. I think the people would see more of them. I think you'd find evidence of bodies or things like that.
You'd find something, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think they have to be more spiritual, more paranormal.
Right, and maybe people they had the footprints. One of the interesting thing about trackways I noticed was that you see 2 or 3, maybe a few more, and they start nowhere and they go nowhere, and they just it's like they're walking and boom, they're gone. So that was one of the many things that would point to something's going on that's a little different. Probably the greatest trackway was that one that was found in Oregon, where it looked like some Bigfoot walked out into a reservoir that was drying up and walked out and came back, which left about a couple hundred tracks, which may or may not be a hoax. But anyhow, the typical thing is you get a few tracks and that's it. And I actually had my own experience. I have some land, 40 acres in the Rocky Mountains, and I was watching tracks in the snow, and they went to this one area, and that was it. It just disappeared. I mean, it didn't go anywhere. The tracks, I'm following it, and then it went to an area, and there were no more tracks.
Okay, that's interesting.
My future son-in-law backtracked it, and it ended up, and they disappeared too. So.
And you say that was on your own property as well?
Yeah. Since then, we've been trying to open a portal, but that's another story. with a small amount of success in a way. But anyhow, so that was I write novels, I like thrillers, and I like science fiction. So I thought, well, what the heck? I'm going to write a novel in which a science fiction novel, near future science fiction novel, where some people realize that Bigfoot are actually alien in origin. They've been here for a long time. They have a variety of paraphysical or paranormal capabilities. Are you familiar with some of the typical ones?
Of Bigfoot or of aliens?
Well, Bigfoot as aliens.
No, I mean I do find it interesting that they could be I guess a breed of alien, because you've got your greys, your reptilians, and your different kind of alien races, and I find it interesting that you could have these hairy, big-footed creatures.
So so their lore goes way back, at least here, and in most countries. I think when I was talking to Bobo, and they traveled the world, pretty much every culture has some sort of story of that hairy man who's has unusual capabilities but has some sort of relationship to humans at times. But the typical thing that you find out is that they have this ability to be heard, making sounds, crunching, but you can't see anything, which would point to some sort of cloaking ability. They have the ability to somehow, maybe through infrasound, scramble your brain periodically, or your mind, however you want to put it. And they have the ability to create unusual smells that are somewhat toxic to people, but always, and maybe not toxic, but at least kind
No,
of sit there.
I know some humans that are capable of those smells as well.
You mean like in Parliament, or what are you talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we got our own stink fest going here too.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's worldwide. Yeah.
um, and so the premise of the book is that they've been here a long time. They have these capabilities of cloaking and sometimes jumping in and out of existence, and they breed not by sexual reproduction, but by kind of a 3D printing process, and they can create these portals that they can go into and move around. Some of them can, but that they have to, when they reproduce, it's basically a one-to-one reproduction. So you what they've been doing here, at least in my book, is that they've been learning and evolving, like everything else in the world evolves and learns. And the time has come to produce a new kind of Bigfoot that would have the capabilities of all the clans that and what they've been learning. And they come to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is a very wooded area with very few people. But there's a group of Native Americans up there that have a casino and have had a direct relationship with the Bigfoot and the clan that lives up there. And the adventure part of the novel is that there's three competing forces that are in play with regard to this event that's going to take place up there. One of the forces just simply says they're alien and we should kill them, you know, which is one of the views that people take on alien possibility.
Yeah, I think that's what humans do to things they don't understand.
Yeah.
They just want to shoot it.
Yeah, get rid of it. There's another group represented by a Russian oligarch of a kind who wants to capture the technology they represent, which is probably the biggest conspiracy theory with regard to alien encounters, is that there are people that know about it and they keep it close to the vest in terms of each country. Are you familiar with Nick Pope?
Yeah, Nick Pope. Yeah, I've seen a couple of Nick Pope lectures. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in our movie, and I asked him about this, and he was in charge of the British version of the American Project Blue Book for a period of time. And the one thing
he's like the English X-Files, wasn't he, for the MOD?
Yes, and so he made it clear that all these countries distributed across the country have units of of the government, mostly in the military, except for the French, that are devoted to investigating what this alien encounter type stuff is, and they don't talk to each other, which was fascinating.
Okay.
So,
So why not the French? Well, I'm just wondering why everyone but the French?
I can't remember what he said right now. Why the French look at it differently.
Okay.
So, but the reason that they do that is that if there's alien technology to be had, it would be important to have it for your own country.
Yeah,
And
I guess that's like the reverse engineering aspect of things, where
that's right.
Yeah.
So, and then the third element in our trifectum of people who are interested in this is a group of high-tech venture capitalists who just became fascinated with the idea what Bigfoot might be, and he uses his own developing artificial intelligence that basically tells them that they're probably alien creatures, somewhat like himself, the artificial intelligence. And events are triggered in basically a 5-day race to decide which of these three forces are going to win in terms of what happens at that what I call a Bigfoot singularity when the Bigfoot from a variety of clans enter the portal and create the new Bigfoot, which I won't tell you whether it's successful or not.
No, because then people won't buy the book. So I guess your book is called Bigfoot Singularity, and that's going to be available on Amazon, I guess, and
Yeah, yeah. Right now you could go pre-order it, depending upon when this plays, but its official release date is October 25th, which is coming up soon.
Okay, so for our listeners, that's Bigfoot Singularity. You can pre-order it now on Amazon. I've had a sneak peek of a few pages. It's very, very interesting, very well written, I must say, Ron. So please, do go ahead and pre-order that book if you have an interest in Bigfoot or the paranormal or aliens. I mean, it's all in there. So do go and have a pre-order of that book and let Ron know what you think of it.
Yes, and write a good positive review so it'll be successful. So anyhow, like I said, my background is filmmaking, and I decided to why not investigate this further for real and see what I can discover. And I set about doing a feature film, and I found a distributor that remarkably said, "Yeah, how much money do you need?" And I told him, he said, "Well, let's go do it." So
wow, look at you. Fell on your feet there.
Yeah, I've been in the business for a long time, so they know that I'll be successful. It'll play, and so began another kind of journey, which is, looking into what is this really about. And one of the first realizations I came to is that there are two camps on Bigfoot, of which the largest is the flesh and blood hairy primate camp.
Yeah.
But there's a growing camp that says, well, wait a minute, we've been in the field for so long, and the kind of experiences we've been having aren't of the nature of a hairy primate. Almost all of them have some element of the encounter is inexplicable, whatever happened.
So like a paranormal aspect to the encounter.
Paranormal or paraphysical, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
So this is a growing group of people, and there's pretty much, you can't write a grant in any respectable university to study this. So there's sort of an underground group of scientists or investigators who are looking at this, and so the point of the film is to kind of bring together, and they all tie into aliens, that they must have some sort of alien or non-human intelligence connection to whatever they are. Does that make sense to you?
Well, it fascinates me because I've read several encounters of how Bigfoot sightings are normally spotted in the same areas as UFO sightings, or they tend to follow each other. So someone will see a UFO sighting, and then shortly after, they, almost like a synchronicity kind of sighting, they will then see a Bigfoot. And I've always been interested in how they connect.
So yeah, so my plan was, well, after I got some firsthand accounts of people like, muscle-bound bikers describing seeing a Bigfoot and watch it pop into a tree and disappear, having that kind of encounter, which would not be the sort of thing you'd think a biker would make up and lie
No,
about.
no, absolutely not.
I thought, well, let's see if I can go investigate a number of these sites, with a camera and a crew. And the first one we went to is a very famous. There's two famous sites in America where alien and where craft and Bigfoot were encountered together. One was in Pennsylvania, the other is in New Mexico at a place called Dulce, which is an Apache reservation where.
And is that where they apparently have the Dulce underground base?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were both back in the 70s when these encounters occurred. At the same time, in the movie, I'm also giving a brief history of alien contact, starting with Roswell. And I happened to get the last interview with Stanton Friedman on camera. You know who he is?
Oh wow, yeah, of course, yeah. Everybody knows who Stanton Friedman is.
Yeah, he was great. His
It was
idea
a
about
shame he
Bigfoot.
died.
Yeah, it was quite sad. Anyhow, his idea is that Bigfoot are here doing the heavy lifting for some other alien something or other.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a theory I've come across before, that they're like the gophers for the intelligent alien beings.
Yeah. And you're familiar with the Fermi paradox, right? That why aren't they here?
No, enlighten us.
You know who Enrico Fermi is, one of the founders of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Very, very famous person, and his buddy John von Neumann, who's another one of these people at Los Alamos, had this idea that many of these civilizations, at least in our galaxy, probably had a 300 million year head start, so they should be here. And Fermi asked it, well, where are they? And the answer that I'm providing is that they are here in multiple forms already. And von Neumann's idea was that you build these self-replicating, self-learning robots. You wouldn't send out our bodies, they're too fragile. You'd make these, as we get closer to good artificial intelligence, AGI, you make these little robots, and they go out and do the exploring for the civilization. And they could get here in pretty much anywhere in the universe pretty damn quickly, at least when you have 300 million years to work with. So they're probably here already. So what form and what kind of contact have they been engaged in? They probably got, as Stan says, they probably got interested in us when we set off atomic bombs, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, well, there's loads of I guess I've seen videos of Americans about to launch weapons and missiles and rockets, and there's always a UFO that you can see in the skyline in the background, almost like they're keeping an eye on what we're doing. And I there's that famous quote, I can't remember who said it, but the aliens almost thought, oh, the children have found the matchsticks, and so now they keep an eye on what we're doing.
Yeah. So whether you believe that idea of what their purpose is, it's probably hard. Yeah, the other thing I've always been interested in is consciousness, and what would another kind of consciousness be that was non-human? And there's no reason to think, since it's probably not body-based, like a biological body, that there would be any way we could really understand what in the hell they're up to. It would just be difficult. Anyhow, so we went to Dulce, and we were able to hire a father-son Apache team. In order to run around on the reservation, you need to have permission from the tribe and have somebody run you around. So we found a father-son team that were trying to find Bigfoot. They had experiences, the kind of experiences where there's this felt presence and the bad smell, but they wanted to get a closer look at it or get a look at whatever it is. So they took us around, and we talked to quite a few members of the tribe. But most of them would tell their experiences, but they wouldn't go on camera. That's sort of the nature of these. They're kind of shy in that way. And almost everybody had some experience of either one aerial alien phenomena, orbs, or Bigfoot. It was pretty amazing. But finally, they found us a guy who was sort of like the town reservation crier, who would people would bring their stories to, and he was able to tell us a number of encounters that people had talked about. The father-son team took us on your typical hunt for Bigfoot, of which we found nothing, but got a good workout climbing around the mountains. And then they took us to an overlook and showed us Archuleta Mountain, and the father, who was a policeman on the reservation for a number of years, said that this place is about in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's about as desolate as you can get, which is the kind of land we give to our native people usually.
Yeah.
he said, why in the world would he? And he said, why in the world would there be so many military black helicopters, big transports, this kind of overabundance of military activity in an area where there's nothing to do there? And
that's an interesting point.
Then he said, well, I'll tell you one story. When I was a policeman, I stopped a military vehicle because it was speeding through the town. And he said there was two people, one driver, and they were dressed in military ops, and in the back they had a cage. And he said, I saw something that I never told anybody. I said, what was in the cage? He says, I'm not saying, I can't tell you. So I found that interesting.
Why couldn't he say? Is he scared that something will be done to him, or?
I got that feeling. But native people are kind of different to talk to. It took a long time to make him comfortable enough with us to. He did tell the example, but he said he wouldn't tell you what he saw. But anyhow, he said he just sent them on their way and was happy to see him get out of there.
Okay.
So that's pretty much what we found in Dulce.
Right, and with the way that he was very cagey with what he would tell you, have you found that speaking to people who are involved in this field, I guess you get a lot of airline pilots who won't admit to seeing UFOs because they're scared of losing their job. Do you get a lot of people that are scared of ruining a reputation that they have if they were to actually admit what they've seen?
Yeah, I got a chance to interview a radar operator, a female, who had multiple stories she would tell me, but not on camera. Although she did give me one good one when she was up in Alaska, because these pilots would come back and they'd be shaken, but of course she can't talk about it on camera. And we said, well, give me one, and we'll hide your identity, and you know how you can do that in video, right?
Yeah.
You blacken them out, change their voice.
Their voice, yeah.
Yeah, so she described a pretty good one up in Alaska, where the commanding officer said she was amazed that the commanding officer was going to report actually what happened, because he said, I'm fucking tired of keeping our mouth shut about this. And she said, well, he didn't go far in his military career.
And that's it, isn't it? That's what, you hear about people that have seen things and witnessed things, but they just don't come out and say it because they're scared of their career or their reputation being tarnished. And you have to wonder how many people out there have actually seen these things, but it's just not recorded. It's not down on tape. It's not down on paper.
Yeah, and they won't say because they think it makes them sound a bit crazy.
Exactly. So
or they're not permitted to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
on our way to Dulce, there's this tourist thing that's called the Alien Watchtower in this San Luis Valley, which is full of paranormal activity. And she said the Navy came out at one time because she says she has two vortexes on her property. And they did an investigation for 2 days and gave her a little paperwork. And at the end of it, they said not of human origin, whatever that means.
Right, okay. So when we have like these people who are, they have professions that they're trying to I guess to uphold, and that's why they won't say things on camera. Have you ever come across fellow filmmakers who've actually filmed things or seen things, and they haven't been permitted to show it, or you spoke about how Finding Bigfoot would withhold any evidence because that was the paradigm of the program. Are you aware of any evidence that has been caught but is being, I guess, kept under lock and key?
So Bobo, Finding Bigfoot, we got him on camera. He described a situation where the whole crew was sitting there watching, basically a Bigfoot, something walking with a big crunch, walking in front of them, holding
Yeah.
an orb.
Okay.
They filmed it, but they weren't able to use it.
And it's ridiculous, really, isn't it? That because there are people that watch these programs, people who have keen interests in this, and they get ridiculed by, I guess, other parts of society for wanting to find or for wanting to witness this kind of activity. And then when they find clear evidence that could shut down any negativity towards this subject, it's withheld, it's put under lock and key, and people continue to be ridiculed for their beliefs.
Yes, that's a fear, but more and more people are coming out and they're finding each other and exchanging stories. That was the other thing I found. So should I move on to the second place I went?
Yeah, please.
So we went to this place called the Montana Vortex, where there's these weird gravitational effects. You stand in this building and you can lean over in a way that you couldn't, normally. And
Okay.
it's owned by a guy who's had multiple Bigfoot experiences dating way back to the Sierra Nevadas. He's one of the principal people who are part of the new Bigfoot investigators. And he bought this property because he had heard stories about it. And it is a tourist trap. We went there and spent some time. He said there's three things going on. There are orbs that can be filmed. There's a resident Bigfoot that shows up off and on, and there are unexplained aerial phenomena. The new term for the whatever that stuff is that you see in the sky.
A UAP.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like it, but I always have to think it through all the time because UFO pops into my head.
Yeah. Wasn't UAP? Was that coined by like Hillary Clinton, or that was the first time I ever heard of it? Was when I think it was a politician came out and started talking about it.
Oh, I don't know. I thought it might have been part of the ATEP program.
Possibly. Yeah, and well, that has links to the government anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, sidetracking.
I don't know. I don't have that origin for you. So we played around with the vortexes. I got some odd feelings. At night, yes, Joe Hauser's the guy who runs the place. He shoots with his infrared camera, and he captures orbs, and he did that with us. In a less than a second, he captured in three successive shots orbs appearing. First there's none, and then there's a few, and then there's a whole bunch. And we were able to shoot that on our camera as he clicked through the pictures he just shot. He shot other pictures with orbs. This is at night.
Were they visible to the human eye, or were they only visible on the infrared camera?
They're only visible on the infrared camera.
That's interesting. So it's almost like they're operating outside of our frequency range, outside of our visible light.
That's right. And we had infrared cameras, not cameras, but infrared well, they send out an infrared signal, right, when you're filming video.
Yep. Yep.
We picked up nothing really. And then he said that there are these UFPs or whatever they are, unidentified aerial UAPs.
Just UFOs to everyone else.
Yeah.
I came out of this mountain and we sat and froze our ass off, but nothing happened. But the most remarkable thing was, and I sent you a little clip. Did you see that clip I sent you?
Yes, was that of the? It looked like a fairy, or
Yeah.
yeah, very interesting.
So Joe was in the house of mystery with you can see they're kind of standing funny, leaning, talking about the Bigfoot. That resident Bigfoot was there, and I was actually filming that. I was outside filming inside, and I couldn't really see what I was filming in some way because I had a monopod to look out through the window. And it wasn't until I got back and was looking at the footage, and it's like, what in the hell is that? And you saw that thing. It's like a fairy moth, and it appeared just at the moment when he's describing the Bigfoot and likes to be here. And the odd thing is that the sun is coming the other way, so there's no way we can figure out how that thing is illuminated so brightly. It's the brightest thing that's in the scene, or even the scene before when you could see some dappling from the sunlight coming in the window. And in some ways it's quite large, but you could see that nobody else seemed to see it, right?
Well, it flies right past everyone in the room pretty much, and no one really bats an eyelid, or if I've got a big moth or a big insect near me, I'll certainly pay attention to it.
And I looked to see if there were any moths or butter, moths it would have to be, but that was middle of the day, and there's nothing that quite has that structure. And why would it be such a white, bright object? So, I
mean, if you allow us, I'd happily put a link to that clip underneath the interview for our listeners to have a look and give their opinions on.
Absolutely, yeah, it's baffling. So that blew us away, and my editor, who's a major skeptic, can't figure out how that thing could be so bright. He's very good at debunking everything. He's a skeptic, but he couldn't figure this one out.
Okay, certainly interested, and I'll certainly put a link to it on the on the video. Just I'd be interested in what our listeners have to say about that.
And so the final spot we went to was a place in Oregon, which is, there are these areas that are called paranormal hotspot. The vortex would be one where multiple paranormal phenomena are occurring simultaneously, like you said.
I mean it's something I've read about loads of times where they're certainly linked, and I think so as well.
And this is probably the most unusual place we went to. It's there's a guy who retired, bought a piece of property kind of outside Eugene, Oregon, to be near his grandchildren. And all of a sudden, these weird things started happening. It was also very close to that trackway I described to you. Where something went out. So it's not far from there. And he built this shed, a metal shed, and he was running around with, and he found these prints that they took, that he said are Bigfoot knee prints. And he brought them back to the shed. And when they did that, all these weird things started happening at that shed. Do you know what the process of gifting is? Have you heard of that?
No,
I've never heard of that.
No, I might know it by another name.
So one of the ways is that people are beginning to say, well, let's not try and hunt down Bigfoot. Let's leave things out and tell them we want to play.
I remember there was a guy who used to leave like jars of peanut butter and sweets for them and things like that near a certain tree, and they'd always disappear.
So they started that process there, and they started getting these weird gifts, like one time, Daryl's the name of the guy who owns the house. They went away and they found a big rock in their house. or his wife was having surgery and a little glass bird, because she liked birds, was set on the windowsill. So they had multiple events like that. And they started playing games like tic-tac-toe, and they would, and other sort of things. And then they got this idea, well, it seems to be connected to the corner of this metal garage workspace, which is kind of weird, modern. And so they started putting recording devices in the shed, and they picked up like a ruckus going on, like things were banging and clacking in there.
Yeah.
And they were able to record them. And then they got voices. Some of them sound like the Sierra sounds of the Bigfoot. Others are women's voices saying things.
Okay.
So you can see the paranormal things that are happening. And then one of the people that owned the house, their son died. I think he committed suicide. And they got these chalky handprints in the house. And they picked up voices that said, "I'm dead." Wow. Of a boy speaking.
That's interesting.
Everybody in the neighborhood was constantly seeing these floating light orbs around at night, of which Daryl got some on his cell phone, and they're kind of cool. But you could debate whether it's something or.
Well, yeah, that's a debate we have in the paranormal field all the time. Is it dust? Is it insects?
Yeah.
Is it ghosts? It's a widely debated topic.
So, do you think that Bigfoot could be some sort of like shape-shifting creature as well?
Well, my joke in that video clip is that the idea is that they're smarter than us and they like to play jokes on us. That when he says the Bigfoot shows up, it shows up not as a 6-foot creature, but as a little tiny fairy moth.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so the simplest interpretation is that the Bigfoot shapeshifted into that and was playing games with us. And so we decided, well, let's, we were only there for one day and so on. So we said, they said, we're sure we're going to get some activity in the shed. So let's set up to record. We'll put our recorders, we'll drag a speaker system on the outside of the shed, and we'll see if we can see if some activity starts to occur, which eventually it did. And so the plan was, let's send one of us into the shed where you have we can use our infrared cameras to sort of light up and make sure there's nobody in there clunking things around. And we'll see if any sounds occur. And in fact, they did. Alan went in, my co-producer, son-in-law. He could, there were sounds, we could hear him outside. He was filming them inside, so his camera was rolling, so he was picking them up. So you got bangings and clacks and all sorts of stuff. And he's in there, and there's nothing in there to be seen, except he said twice it got really cold for him, and then went back to normal, and then another time it got cold for him. So we actually what in the hell is making those noises in that shed? So we did get stuff. We got sounds, and they've been getting more recordings and more voices out of that place, which is, they're all kind of creepy in some way.
So have they ever found or captured visual evidence of what we would describe as a Bigfoot?
No, they're honest about it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of. I mean, these days. I mean, what's your opinion on hoaxed films? I mean, the problem nowadays across the board of UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, is it's getting easier and easier to hoax films, to hoax photographs. I mean, we have the famous Patterson-Gimlin video from 1967 in Northern California. If you're not aware of it, everybody knows the video of that Bigfoot that's striding across the forest clearing and takes a glance back at the camera before he moves on. Do you think that was real?
So I've talked to Bob Gimlin. I've interviewed him.
Okay.
Patterson's dad. He's just a good old rancher boy. He said when the Bigfoot looks back, that's when he raised his gun, his rifle.
Yeah.
He wasn't filming. If it's a hoax, he was not part of it. He was, he went into hiding for a long time because he didn't want to be bothered. But now he's kind of a hero. But so if it's a hoax, he's not a part of it. But nobody's really been able to quite disprove it, have they?
No, I mean I've heard I've been to a few different lectures on cryptozoological creatures, and this particular video always comes up as a talking point, and people have pointed out how the Bigfoot has got, I guess, breasts, and how the thigh muscles move, and how apparently I'm not sure how true this is, but off the recording it moves to a bushy area and picks up a smaller, like a child Bigfoot, before moving away. I've heard that, but I'm not sure how true that is.
Bob never said anything like that.
Okay, that must just be some wild claims.
But they did go find prints after.
And they did find them?
Yeah. I think they made casts of them.
And whatever happened to those casts?
I think you can buy one online. Once you make one, you can make 100, right?
Yeah, that's true. And then again, how authentic are they, though?
That's true.
So do you think it's a shame? Because I know myself and Ben, as paranormal investigators, we really find it quite infuriating these days that we can never tell if there's a true picture or a real piece of evidence on film, because everybody will always say, "Oh, it's CGI or it's Photoshop."
Yeah,
so
it's so easy for people to
it's
do
so
that.
easy to fake. So are we ever gonna be able to look at a piece of film and fully acknowledge that it's real?
Probably. I mean, I can tell you that the footage we shot is real. I mean, it would be very, very hard to CGI that particular. It would take the best of Hollywood to be able to do that, and we're not that. But the conclusion that people who are looking at this, that the Bigfoot is alien paranormal with paranormal capabilities, is that the movement is to start studying these things together as one thing, as opposed to there's ghosts over here and Bigfoot over there and alien craft and abductions here. That it's all one thing, and in some way it's the contact experiences are all very kind of personalized, and that they're testing the contactees to see how they're studying us, because they're, by definition, if they're alien and they're here, they got to be smarter than us, right?
Yeah, I mean, do you think that these aliens are interplanetary or interdimensional?
I do, and that
So,
and that they. So I'm basically, my background is pretty much science when I'm not making movies. I'm a pretty famous fossil collector and written some important papers and made some important discoveries. And I've never really been, I've run around with my son-in-law and my daughter, where they do paranormal investigations. I haven't really experienced anything, but I had my own encounter. I was in the Pacific Northwest this summer, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw I couldn't believe it, a big white wolf-like thing that materialized out of nowhere and moved, looked at me, turned with a fluidity, and headed back down a road across from where I was driving, and sort of morphed into almost human-like structure and then disappeared. And
wow.
And then I was actually going to shoot some interviews for the movie, where this guy, Ron Moorhead, who's about Quantum Bigfoot, I don't know if you've heard of it. he recorded the Sierra sounds, all these chatter between Bigfoot.
Yeah, I've heard of videos similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I got to the venue, I was talking because there was a gathering of that group, and they said, "Have you had any experience?" I said, "No, not until an hour ago." And I described it to them, and their hair sort of stood up and ended. The natives were talking about other people who had seen that same sort of creature lately. And at one point, the receptionist, because the casino's also a hotel, came up to me and she said, "I know what you saw. It's a skinwalker." But she was Navajo.
Wow. And a skinwalker, I guess, is that's the term that has been given by Native Americans. It's something that's similar to a shapeshifter, something that can change shape.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's my experience. And I asked them, somebody who's been involved with this idea that this is all one sort of thing. I said, "Well, what do you think that is?" He said, "Well, I think it's a sign they wanted to let you know that they approve of what you're doing. You'll have more contacts." So one of the ideas is that if you're open to this, you have one contact, and you're open to it, and you find it okay, you'll get more. And that seems to be the pattern, because these people are beginning to accumulate all these reports and looking for patterns, right? What's going on? And the conclusion they're coming to is that they're becoming more frequent, and they're testing people out towards maybe some sort of big revelation about aliens, eh?
Yeah. Well, what's termed as disclosure, I guess. People constantly arguing about whether the government are going to disclose the existence of aliens or not.
And of course, many people think that the government very much already knows that they exist.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be in that camp. I think that the government absolutely, and I wouldn't say the government as in every single person that's in office, but I would say, as you mentioned earlier, people like Project Blue Book, MJ12, the Majestic 12. I think there are fragments of governments that are in charge of looking at this kind of phenomena. It's very compartmentalized, and I don't think everybody is allowed to know what's going on.
Yeah, my nephew, who's also my godson, he's in the Air Force. He's a colonel, and he's now at the Pentagon, but for a while he was head of security at Vandenberg, which
Okay.
is, Vandenberg's where they launch missiles.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Well, what do you think about?" He's got multiple cell phones. He's got 3 cell phones: his personal one, his base cell phone, and the shit's hit the fan cell phone. And on his personal cell phone, I said, "What do you think of unexplained aerial phenomena?" I did the acronym. And he gave me one word back. He said, "Believe."
Wow. Okay. So we've moved from Fox Mulder, I want to believe, to believe.
Yeah.
We're getting closer.
Yeah. But, he can't really talk about a lot of things. It's interesting to talk about because he can't talk about a lot of things.
Yeah. I bet that's quite frustrating though, because you just want him to give a few things away, but I guess he can't because of his job. Again, how many people out there have witnessed these things, but
again and again
because of their job, they're just not allowed to.
Yes. So anyhow, the conclusion is that since you're part of this now, you're helping what they want to have happen, which is to get more people to have contact. It's kind of like cushioning the populace to become familiar with it. And a number of the people that I interviewed who had these experiences, they do very much seem to be tailored for what they're capable of. If they're highly into paranormal experiences, they're quite different. If it's for the first time you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or wife who's into this stuff and you're a skeptic, your experience is going to be quite different than if you're sensitive or have that already part of the way you look at the world, the whole world.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, my wife is a skeptic in all of these kind of things, so it's always she comes on a few ghost investigations with us, and it's always interesting when other people are seeing things. It's always interesting to ask what she's seeing and what she's experiencing, because it's always the polar opposite of what everybody else is experiencing. And I find it quite interesting. Has she just shut her mind off to it? People, are they just shutting their minds off to it, and they don't want to open up to the possibility? And only when they open up to the possibility will they begin to experience, as you said.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the patterns. And then the other thing, I'm repeating myself here, is that if you have one contact and you're good with it, you'll probably get more. And they always seem to be very unexpected. There's like this one I had is like the last thing I would have ever thought to have had. I was hoping I'd see a dark, hairy object someplace cruising through the wooded area, but this was in a pretty developed area in some ways.
Yeah, and I guess it was also when you were least expecting it.
Yeah.
There've been plenty of times where you've actually been out actively hunting this phenomena, and we have this exactly the same, don't we, Ben?
It happens all the time.
You're kind of sat in a dark room, wishing that a ghost will appear in front of you, and then the second you start talking about the football match last night or something, and you take your mind off it, you start to see things out the corner of your eye, and things start to happen again. So it's always when you're least expecting it.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the patterns that's emerging. By people accumulating reports, and you can now have artificial intelligence analyze it and look for patterns, which is what's happening.
Yeah. So do you think that I guess because if Bigfoot is this kind of multi-dimensional being that can appear everywhere and anywhere, then why do they only tend to appear in particular areas in America? As we mentioned at the start of the show, we don't really have any sightings in England or in the UK. Any modern day sightings anyway, and there are plenty of areas in the world where Bigfoot isn't witnessed anymore, but it's still quite an active phenomena in the US.
Things like the Yeti,
the abdominal snowman and things like that.
Sort of along
but
those
again
lines.
they're stuck to particular areas. If they were multi-dimensional beings, why wouldn't they choose to appear outside of the hot spots?
Are you sure you haven't had anybody have any in Britain?
Not that. I mean, I'm not a massive. I haven't really looked into it, but like I say, around by us, there's that place called Cannock Chase, and apparently it has a Bigfoot there, and there's been several accounts, but nothing really concrete, nothing firm.
So what kind of paranormal contact experiences do you have in Britain? You must have some sort.
Well, in around by us, I mean, we have a lot of UFOs. I've had my own very close UFO experience. Myself and Ben have obviously witnessed paranormal activity on our investigations.
There's also been a lot of evidence and sightings of like beasts.
That's what we tend to get actually in the UK,
like cats,
big cats, or big black dogs that appear in farmlands and things like that. So as opposed to the monkey type creature, we tend to get the canine and the feline type creatures.
Well, the thing I saw would fit more what you guys get. So, if they're shape shifting, they probably tailor their contacts in a way that's acceptable to you Brits.
Well, that makes sense. If all of a sudden someone did see a Bigfoot shaped Bigfoot, then it would be a bit out of the ordinary, and it would. I get that. I understand that. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I guess we'll
goes
start
along with this one idea is that these contact experiences, and they are contact experiences, are tailored to to the individual in terms of what they're capable of dealing with.
I think you're right. I mean, something we've touched on before is how it could be that people that are witnessing ghosts or Bigfoot or aliens, it's all the same paranormal phenomena, but it's the person that's witnessing it that is materializing it into that particular form. So you always have, the Virgin Mary is always witnessed by extremely religious people. So are they witnessing the same paranormal phenomena, but because of their mindset, their religious beliefs, they're structuring it to appear as the Virgin Mary?
That seems to be the conclusion that these people who started out as Bigfoot researchers have tended towards. One other story. Doug Hychek, have you ever heard of Monster Quest?
Monster Quest, yeah.
First series, on cable or television, where the idea was that you would go out and look for a monster, right?
Yep.
Episode after episode. It started a whole genre of programming. And I interviewed him for the first program I did, and he was totally, at that time, at least the way he was on camera, was this Bigfoot's this hairy creature, and we're analyzing hairs and all that sort of stuff. And then recently I had a reason to talk to him about maybe doing a project on 411, this mysterious disappearance of people, that David Pilates written these books about. And we talked about maybe doing, the three of us doing something. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I told him about this. And I said, "Well, I know you're not into that paranormal." He said, "Oh, well, sure I am. Let me tell you." So I got pictures of orbs and all sorts of stuff. I said, "Well, you don't talk about it?" "No, not really."
And why does he choose not to talk about it?
I don't know.
That's interesting. If he's got pictures and evidence, you think it'd be showing the world?
You'd think, but maybe he's worried that the powers that be will fund his next project. Don't like that idea.
Yeah, and I think that seems to be a central theme running throughout this interview. Yeah, that people are witnessing things. They're too scared, or they're not in a position to be able to come out and tell the world what it is they're seeing.
Yeah, it's really odd to me that this is the lay of the land. It's not what I would have expected. This has been quite a journey of like, oh, really? How strange is this?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess we'll start wrapping it up now. So please feel free now to, tell our listeners, once again, the title of your book is Bigfoot Singularity. If you want to tell us when it's available again, and any videos that they can get you on, any contact details should they wish to get in touch, maybe they've got a witness account of a Bigfoot they could tell you about.
Yeah, you can. Well, the book comes out on October 25th, and you can buy it on Amazon in Britain. I take it. How about Barnes and Noble?
We don't really have Barnes and Noble. I guess you could buy an ebook from there, but we don't have a physical shop, Barnes and Noble, no.
So the book will be available for e-reading and for hard copy.
Okay.
If they my son-in-law, you can contact him, and I can give you the contact information. I can't remember it as I'm sitting here right now, but it's also, if you post a video clip, and you can see that we have the information for how to contact us on the video, both on the little legend on the YouTube that tells you what it's about, and then at the end of the little clip. And the movie should be out probably in a couple months, which should be fun.
Okay. And what's the title of the movie?
The movie is The Bigfoot Alien Connection Revealed.
Okay, sounds great. I'm certainly looking forward to it anyway. Right, well,
we should stay in touch.
Absolutely. Look, we've clearly got things in common and the same theories and the same hypotheses of what's going on around the world. I'd certainly be keen on keeping in touch. And once the film comes out, we'll definitely get you back on the show, and we can talk a little bit more about the film and how it's being received, and any other pieces of evidence that you've gathered between now and then. That'd be great.
And arrange a screening someplace in your neck of the woods.
That'd be good, actually. Yeah. I've got a big projector screen. That'd That'll be quite interesting. I'm actually part of a group in Birmingham, Birmingham UFO group. So what I'll do actually is I'll link you to the guy who runs that and see if he'd be interested in screening the video for you.
Super.
That'd be good.
You guys are a hoot. It's good talking to you.
Yeah, that's
And you,
been
yeah.
an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Ron, and we'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and that was our interview there with Ron Mayer. Fascinating subject, as all of our subjects are. But Bigfoot is a particularly interesting topic for myself. Ben, I know you've got some thoughts.
I'm still skeptical about the whole
what
thing.
we spoke about in the intro. I think the paranormal side of it and stuff, does that not kind of link with you? Or?
I've never really thought of it as being maybe an interdimensional being or something paranormal. So that does intrigue me. But just the whole premises of some big ape type creature, as was mentioned in the interview, I don't know. It seems unrealistic.
Yeah, and I think for me that there has to be, and I think this is the skeptical side coming out in me, which is getting bigger and bigger by the day. But the skeptical side says that, is it possible that the reason people are jumping to a paranormal conclusion is because there's so little evidence to back up that a Bigfoot exists, that they've kind of jumped down the paranormal route, just to, as if, you know when religious people say, and this is nothing against religious people, but when you hear of religious people say, they'll explain some anything they can't explain, they say, well, God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, it's like a get out clause.
It's a get out clause. And it's almost the same here, that, oh, well, I can't really explain why no one's witnessing Bigfoot, and I can't explain why
paranormal.
that. So let's say it's paranormal, and that kind of answers everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's the skeptical side of me. As we discussed in the intro, I am a big believer in Bigfoot and other cryptids, but you always have to look at both sides of the fence.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not something I've ever really looked into that much as well. So it's kind of, I don't know where to put my decisions.
Yeah, I guess so. And
like I've seen that famous footage that was mentioned of Bigfoot walking through the forest, that sort of thing. But you look back on that now and you just think, what is that? Is it a bloke in a dodgy suit? Is it
It's
real?
never been proven.
Well,
It's never been proven. It's never been disproven. But what you're doing there, and it's the right attitude. Is that you've never really looked into it, so you can't really give an opinion.
Exactly.
You have an opinion.
I've got an opinion, but I can't. I wouldn't force that opinion upon others and say this is what is true.
Yeah, and that's an interesting,
because I'd have to look at both sides.
And that's an interesting way of looking, and that's how we should look at it. And I encourage anyone to, if you don't have if you haven't got, if you're not educated on both sides of the story, I guess, then it always remember that, and never kind of say that never rubbish something, or never say something's just a load of BS, just because it doesn't sit right with you. Unless you've done a lot of research, then you don't really have that. I guess you don't have the right to diss it, to have a go at it. So that's what, and I applaud that kind of behaviour. Well done, Ben.
Oh, thanks.
Right, so we hope you enjoyed that. As we mentioned in the last show with Eva, we opened that show discussing the validity of TV programs, paranormal programs. Thank you for all the feedback that we got off of that. If you're interested in the topic that we spoke of at the start of the show, which was Bigfoot, of course, and cryptids, then please leave your comments in the videos. Please email us, Facebook us, and join in the debate. And again, if there's anything interesting, we'll read it out on the next show. And I'm just looking through my notes now to see who it is we've got booked up for the next show. I believe we're going to have a lady on the show who's going to be coming on to discuss dimensional beings, and anything ranging. I think Bigfoot is a subject as well. Bigfoot being a dimensional being, dream analysis, and I guess just consciousness and how we exist within a multiple dimensional universe. So that will be the next show. And as always, if anyone's got any ideas for guests, please let us know. Please throw them at us, and we'll be more than interested in getting in touch with them and getting them on the show. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We're on episode 7 already. Can't believe it.
I know, yeah.
It's flying by. We're building up a great little fan base, and we appreciate every single one of you that listens to us and that provides feedback, that likes our videos, that shares our videos. We really are touched, and we really, really do appreciate it. For two lads from the West Midlands, I think we're doing pretty well at the moment.
Yeah.
To say we started this as a bit of fun and
Yeah.
and just something to fill the those cold, lonely winter nights. It's certainly going well. So thank you very much, and we hope you stick with us for many more shows to come. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. So thank you very much.
Thanks
and
for
bye.
listening.